Welcome, it's the Close the Deal Show. I'm your host, Terrence McGray. Once again, we like to always share stories, feature entrepreneurs, local small business owners, and nonprofit organizations. This week, we're going to talk to Miss Thandwie Cato. She is a financial advisor, but the specific topic we're going to talk about is the value of having a financial advisor. Thandwie Cato has been in finance for almost 5 years. Her commitment to excellence have played a key role in building strong relationships with her ecosystem. With an international business degree from San Francisco State University, Thandwie Cato is an active member of her community involved in various youth mentor programs and is also a member of Urban Financial Service Coalition right here in the Bay Area. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Miss Thandwie Cato. How are you?
I'm absolutely great. Thank you so much for having me today.
Absolutely. Pleasure having you. One of the things that I want our viewers to know about you is tell us a little bit about your background.
Absolutely. So, like you said, I studied international business in college. I absolutely didn't do anything with it in the same way, but it led me to study abroad and really get a deeper understanding of different cultures. I came back, I started in sales, and then I transitioned to banking. And once I was on the banking side, I realized that I wanted to do more in wealth management, so I switched over to that side. And it really gave me a better understanding for how people manage their funds, how it is people essentially, some people are able to pass on and sustain their wealth, and other people have, more of an issue with it. So I really saw a need to help people in terms of financial planning and really create a process towards that. So I've stuck with it. I'm passionate about it. I absolutely love it.
So at a young age, did you learn how to develop saving your money?
I did. I don't want to use the word cheap, but I was definitely very frugal, and I was taught to every time I had money, I would definitely put it in my piggy bank and save up. I didn't know necessarily what I was saving for, but it was always that rainy day of just seeing that money in the bank, watching it grow. And I actually, my mom, who helped me to start investing, I started doing my own mutual fund when I was 14 years old. So I was able to start doing that and really have a better understanding, not only of, okay, you're not just saving, but you're actually growing your money at a higher rate. So that's kind of where I got my start.
So how did you avoid peer pressure while your friends were always going out and buying things? Instead, you were saving your money.
I would find, and I always tell people this, to have something that's a little reward. So there would be little things I would spend my money on. So if there were things like, for an example, we were all going out to eat, I would get something, maybe I wouldn't get something big, or I'd order something off of the value menu, so I was still part of things. I wouldn't necessarily get everything. And when they would go shopping, it would more be window shopping for me. I'm still like that, where if I have to go shopping for something, I know which item I'm going for, so I'm not huge on shopping sprees all the time.
So it sounds like to me you end up collecting coupons.
I don't. I'm not gonna lie. When I was in high school, they used to sell. They probably still do. They sell coupons on eBay, and I used to buy like a whole bunch of coupons and use them. But I don't. I don't do that anymore.
So was it difficult in sales, or was it more beneficial in the wealth management?
I would say, and I'll also add that being in the wealth management sales space is also a type of sales. It's different, but essentially a lot of times we don't see things that are sales, quote unquote, sales positions, but they are still, you still have to sell yourself. And that's essentially what it is. When I'm working with people, there's tons of different financial advisors or people that you can work with, but essentially what makes you different? You're selling yourself, you're building trust with people, and I think that's something that I've carried over.
So is your mother the one who molded you and taught you how to prepare for a rainy day?
Absolutely. She's been a huge influence. I definitely give so much credit to her because she's really set the tone as far as values and saving your money and being able to invest with it and, you know, save for a house and different things like that. So she has so much credit there as far as developing me into somebody who's able to do that as well.
So being responsible is very important at a young age.
Mm-hmm.
But what's the one thing that you remember the most at a young age that your mom instilled in you when it came to money?
When it came to money, I would say definitely organizing. She's very organized. And so even when I talk to some of the clients that I work with, it's kind of like going back to a foundational level of budgeting and organizing your things. Where's your money going? Why don't you have enough to contribute to your retirement account or your kids' education fund? Where's your money? Are you spending too much money on your Ubers or food or different things? So again, she really taught me the importance of knowing where that goes because she is also an accountant. So it has led me to know how to manage my funds a lot better.
Sounds like to me you not only value money, but you also value on how you budget it. So what advice would you share with someone about valuing your money?
I would say it's never too early, and it's never too early to start thinking about the long term. And I will say it's not the sexy thing to do where, you know, I'm finding a lot of people are getting caught up in these hypes of I want to make money, I want to make a return fast. But I don't necessarily want to spend the time in making sure that, you know, my money's compounding, I have enough money for retirement and different things like that. And so on the opposite end of that, what it looks like is, you know, you're, 5 to 10 years away from your retirement date, but you don't necessarily have the proper funds saved up. So really being more organized as far as, you know, even if you're in your 20s, it's never too early to start having that conversation and start thinking about those things more long term.
So it sounds like as well, discipline plays a major role in order for you to achieve that goal. So what would you recommend for someone who is starting off and about to retire and managing their money within the next 10 years? What kind of portfolio would you prepare them with?
Okay, so I technically can't say what kind of portfolio and give that advice, but I will say, again, it comes down to sitting down with somebody and really mapping out what that looks like for you. The reason, especially if you're looking at different platforms and things, is sometimes it can be more of a blanket statement. So you want to make sure you're having more of an individualized approach where it's like one-on-one and they can tell you, okay, I understand what your goals are, both short-term and long-term. Here's how we can kind of map things out.
Well, I was taken back for a second when you said, oh, I can't tell you that. And I was like, okay, that's that money tip right there. I wanted to throw in there. But, overall, what inspires you every day to wake up to do what you do?
I would say, honestly, it's just to be a better version of myself, to be able to learn. I would say one thing that I was taught is just to constantly have a level of curiosity, because once you lose that, you find yourself kind of being more or less stagnant. And I never want to become stagnant. I will always want to, be able to challenge myself and push myself to the next level so I can then be able to help people in a better manner as well.
You do a lot of work when you say helping people. Could you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Absolutely. So, as far as when I'm working one-on-one with people, is that what you're just saying?
Oh, no. Overall, in general, not just working one-on-one, whether you're doing work with Urban Financial Service Coalition or whether you're giving back to the community as a whole, because that entails a lot when you can share what someone else has shared with you to someone else.
Yeah, I'll definitely say as far as that, I think education is a huge proponent of that, because a lot of times, what is the value that you can add towards people? What can you teach them? What can you educate them on? One thing I really appreciate is when, I'm able to work with somebody and they're like, hey, I didn't necessarily know that, or I didn't understand that. Thank you for clarifying it in a way that's more digestible. So I think that's really important as far as how I'm able to help and educate people on the different things.
Can you give an example that you've done that with? Or multiple example? And as far as educating and explaining something to someone who originally got back with you and said, thank you for that. I didn't know anything about that. I was unsure.
Sure. So somebody had questions about one of their retirement accounts. They didn't understand how it worked. They didn't understand that their employer was actually contributing, and they were essentially leaving money on the table. So when we talked about it and discussed it as far as how much they would potentially need to retire at this certain age, and then digging a little bit deeper in terms of, how we can map things out, what other investments they should add to their portfolios, what other protection they should have. They said, no one's ever broke it down to me. I just had this job. I knew that they had a retirement plan, but no one ever took the time to kind of sit down with me and discuss, okay, this is what I should be doing with my money.
So when you say sit down and discuss,
Mm-hmm.
do you find yourself sometimes more or less, I wouldn't say upset, but more or less shocked when people at a certain age don't have their finances in order?
I don't know if I would necessarily use the word shocked, because I've seen it with people who are young, all the way from in their 20s, to people who are closer to their retirement age, over 60. So it's never that I'm shocked. It's that I think when it comes to the conversation of money, people are essentially scared or maybe embarrassed to talk about it. So then they don't, and then all of a sudden that 20-year-old is now 60 years old, and they haven't necessarily taken those steps to do so. And so maybe I'm talking to somebody who's in their 60s and kind of telling them, okay, this is what we should start doing now. So unfortunately, it would have obviously been better if we did it when they're in their 20s, but I like to say it's never too late. We can always do something to improve.
How do you reach to those people? What methods do you find yourself using to get it through people's head as far as, being financially literate?
I would say it's kind of twofold. So I can, again, educate you as far as what you should be doing or what recommendations that I think would be best. However, it's never going to mean anything if you're not ready and you're not able to implement them. So I would say definitely you can go to all these educational workshops, you can read, you can do all these different things, but if you're not taking the proper steps to actually implement them, I think that's essentially what holds a lot of people back.
When you say proper steps, so you think a person has to be in the right frame of mind, or do you think that outside of educating themselves, they need an advisor, financial advisor?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, they do. I think everyone should at least get a second opinion from someone else, even if they're not going to do it. But at the end of the day,
why not a third opinion?
You can do as many as you want, right? But to my point, it's like you get a second opinion, third opinion, fourth opinion, but are you doing anything? Okay. Right? So I think that's what it's always going to come back to, like just doing something. And I think people get caught up in trying to do the perfect thing, and then time goes by and they do nothing. So I think it's always better to make a move. Even if you make a mistake, you can go back, correct it, and you learn something new from doing that. So
how do you deal with family members as well as friends who come to you for advice but don't take what you're telling them on face value and then find themselves in a dilemma coming back to you?
In due time. I mean, it's, again, it goes back to, like, you have to be ready for it. So I'm not going to, have you, if you come back to me, I'm not going to just throw it in your face and be like, see, I told you.
Yeah.
But okay. I will say, it's when you're mentally prepared to actually take that step and move forward, rather than just you're doing it because I said so. I want you to have a level of understanding and also be comfortable before you move forward and start implementing those things.
There are so many famous African Americans in this country right now trying to not only educate the community as a whole on generational wealth. Mm-hmm. Why is this movement resurfacing after they, as a matter of fact, the President of the United States finally acknowledged the massacre in Oklahoma with the Black Wall Street, mm-hmm. as we all know? Why is it now a movement like Black Lives Matter? Why is there so much of a movement on educating the community?
I think just because of the time that we're in. During 2020, I'll say people had more time to think. And a lot more people started thinking this is not necessarily the position that I want to be in, especially because we were in a situation where we didn't expect the unexpected. Nobody would have predicted at that time that so many uncertain events would happen, and they weren't necessarily prepared for it. So now we're having this conversation of, okay, now I need to make sure if anything else happens, I'm more financially prepared. So I've seen so many people start talking about investing and protection, or through like real estate, insurance, all these different things that we were not having that conversation at the same level before.
So do you find that to be good, or do you find that to be just talk?
I think it's absolutely great, because again, it's planting that seed, but again, what are you going to do with it? Are people actually implementing these things, or just buying a bunch of courses? And I think I've definitely seen an increase in how much more people are getting involved in the market and really getting involved in their finances and taking more of control of that.
So it sounds like to me you're getting more clients.
That is also a good thing too.
Absolutely. Yeah, so when it comes to financial literacy, a lot of times people do avoid that. I've even avoided it, I must admit. When you find yourself in a situation dealing with a client that is opposing your decision, how do you approach that?
I'll follow up with you in a couple of months. That's what I have to say sometimes. Again, I don't ever want to force somebody to do things that they're not feeling comfortable with, and they may not be in that mindset to move forward. So a lot of times maybe we're not doing things maybe you started working together in March, but we're not ready to implement things until November of that year. So it all depends, and it could be even further than that. Where I've had people who've known that I've still been in this position for a couple of years now, but have now approached me after the fact as well. So it just depends on that person. But I would definitely say, let's speak, in a couple of months and see how you're doing.
Have you ever felt like, I wouldn't say discriminated, but looked at as if you're too young to know what you know? How can you predict what the market is going to look like? Because I've once heard, you don't want to deal with a financial advisor unless they have 15 years experience. What do you think of that?
I think there's an advantage to having each age group. So if you have somebody who's a little bit older, they have that experience because they've, like you said, been in the market longer, they've seen different things. But at the same course, they may be closer to retirement, and so they may not be there necessarily to manage your book of business while you still have that time to do so. Whereas if you have a younger advisor who's able to then work with you, I have people who are a little bit younger who I know, 20, 30 years down the line that I'm going to be working with. So it just depends, but I'd say like there's an advantage and disadvantage to both. You just have to make sure that you understand the opportunity when you're working with somebody.
That's a good strategy to have. I've never looked at it from that perspective. I'm familiar with not only your work, but during COVID, you were doing a lot of Zooms, webinars on financial literacy. What brought about that movement?
I would say definitely being adaptable, because there was a lot of businesses that said, okay, I don't know if I want to mess with this whole online platform. I don't understand it. Whereas other businesses were like, this is a time for me to be able to optimize my business and be able to grow my business, because now I can reach a wider audience, because now that I'm on Zoom, you're not just getting people who are in the Bay Area, you're able to talk to people who are in, Texas or New York or Georgia and all these different places. So we really saw it as an opportunity to speak to people, and it was more convenient because you don't have to use transportation to go to these places for our workshops. You can just open your laptop and get some information.
Another good strategy. What did you do with that data after you learned how people were thinking in other cities and different communities?
I would say definitely there was times even when, I did a workshop that was in another market. So just the time difference, I would say, and also catering it a little bit more to, okay, what's a hot topic out there that might be a little bit different than the Bay Area? What are people leaning more towards? What is the real estate market looking like? Are they interested a little bit in more in insurance, different things like that? So it definitely depends. And then there were also some partnership opportunities that we worked with that were able to do so many different topics that all related to finance and money.
Okay. When it comes to financial tips, I know you may not be able to give this.
Mm-hmm.
We always like to enlighten the public with, the core values of the Close the Deal show.
Uh-huh.
When it comes to commitment to integrity, what does that mean to you, and how would you apply it in your own career?
I would definitely say commitment to integrity is just knowing your authentic self and being able to provide truth, to be able to make sure that people are in the best positions possible. That may or may not mean working with me. So I'll say, for an example, there's been people who may not have been the best fit, but on the other side, I know people who I can refer them to. So I think just having that level of, you don't have to take everything, and knowing what comes first and what's going to be best for the people that you're working with is something that's truly important, especially when you're building out your business.
When it comes to education through collaboration,
Mm-hmm.
Same question.
I think that's very powerful because you're great doing things by yourself, but you can reach such a wider audience when you're collaborating with people, because then you're able to do different topics and use their network to support what you're doing and have more people reach out to you. So I think it's definitely important to collaborate with others and refer business whenever you can.
Trust with authenticity.
Be your authentic self. That's the best way I can put it, because I think there's so many times where we think we need to be something that someone wants in order to get business. But if you're being true to yourself and what you stand for, what values you represent, I think you should have no problem. Those people are going to gravitate towards you.
How long do you see yourself in the financial field?
I'm being there for a long time. So for anybody listening who is my client or potential clients, we're talking like 20, 30, 40 years down the line. This is something that I'm very passionate about. This is something that I see myself doing long term.
When you said that, if you weren't able to be in the auditorium room of some high school kids, anywhere in the Bay Area, what would you tell them regarding the importance of managing your money?
I think there's something so powerful about starting early and picking up certain money habits while you're in high school. I mean, I even think about, how I started in high school, how I could potentially have done more even to put myself in a better position. But like you said, sometimes, as high school kids, even in college, you want to go out, you want to do different things, you want to spend money. And you can still do those things. I'm not saying don't spend any money, but manage your money and make sure you're knowing how to deal with credit. Make sure you understand, okay, what does the next 5 to 10 years look like for me? And how can I start making sure that I put things in a position to actually achieve those goals? So sit down, make a plan. That's probably the best thing I say.
Well, one of the things we love doing here regularly, every time we have a guest on the Close the Deal show, is we like for our guests to pitch. We like to put them on the spot. Ideally, we all in business for making money, and this is our actual business show. So if you had the opportunity to let everyone who's listening and watching right there in that camera know why it would be important for them to hire you, what would you say in 45 seconds or less?
Absolutely. So I would definitely say I'm someone who is going to help you throughout your process. So really big on creating a roadmap. So if you're stuck and you're wondering, okay, what's my next move? I know I need to save. I know I need to invest and create a strategy. Definitely reach out to me. with Matthews Financial and Insurance Solutions. We're based in Oakland, California. And like Terrence said, you can also reach us on Zoom to set up a meeting as well. So if you're needing to sit down and make a strategy, please contact me and we can set up a meeting.
Ms. Thandwie, I want to thank you for not only showing up, but I want to thank you for sharing your insight. I want to appreciate you coming in today and giving us all that knowledge and all that wisdom on financial wealth as well as generational wealth. Thank you for coming on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Before we close this deal, this show was sponsored by Spencer Christian from ABC News. He wrote a book called You Bet Your Life. Go to Amazon and pick that up. Take good care, everyone.